Everyone hits a bump in the road. What do you do with it? Be inspired as we explore the ways people experience, navigate, and manage the ups and downs and twists and turns in this road trip called life. Welcome to another episode of Bump in the Road. The basic podcast is always free. We also have a premium subscription called Bump 2 that lets you listen in on extended behind-the-scenes conversations with our guests. Check it out at www.bumpintheroad.us. Shane Cooke was a well-known chef working in a Michelin 2-star restaurant in London. His skill set was superb and his career was taking off, but he felt anxious and depressed. His dis-ease led him to explore a healthier, more conscious lifestyle that revolutionized his entire life. He created Jasper Wellbeing, partly to help people in that industry find their own path to peace. He offers coaching on inner transformation, awakening, healing, and letting go of the busy mind. Please welcome Shane Cooke to Bump in the Road. Shane, welcome to Bump in the Road. If you would, tell our listeners a little bit about your story.
So my name is Shane Cooke and I am a mind-body coach, but I wasn't always a mind-body coach. I was a chef for around 21, 22 years, something like that. I've lost count. It was a long time. I started working working in kitchens at 15 years old. And the truth is, I didn't ever want to be a chef. I fell into it. I was pot washing to make money while I was still at school. And what happened was, it turns out I was really good at chopping. I was really good at chopping. And they then asked me if I'd like to train as a chef. And I just said yes. I didn't particularly try very much in school, and it was a great opportunity for me. It turns out I absolutely fell in love with it straight away, and I quickly decided to move upwards, and move away. I'm originally from the northeast of England, somewhere called Stockton-on-Tees in Middlesbrough. And it was very different down south. It was going into a whole new world. That's where the bright lights of hospitality were, down south. So I started working in Michelin starred places, and to be totally honest, I went for a job in a Michelin star place, and I didn't even know what a Michelin star was at the time. I didn't have a clue, and I cooked for a famous chef, and I got the job somehow, and my career really started from there. So I would like to say the hospitality industry it's a place that will always be in my heart. I love hospitality. I've got lifelong friends from hospitality, and it's given me some of the greatest, just most wonderful times of my life. But there's also what I would call the dark side of it, the health implications, the long hours, in some cases abuse, the use of drugs within the industry, alcohol and stuff like that. And that was part of the culture, and it's something that I lived for a long time. And for 10 years of my hospitality career, I was living with depression and anxiety. But for a lot of that time, I didn't even know I didn't know what it was, because no one spoke about it. It wasn't a conversation. If you showed any weakness, that was a bad thing. In hospitality, you couldn't show weakness. And that made you feel worse, right? Because one, you couldn't understand what was going on with yourself, feeling low, going home and crying to yourself, loss of weight, being sick sometimes in the daytime, and then running back to the kitchen. Very, very unhealthy physically and mentally. So it took the toll on me for a long time. I decided to come out of the restaurants and hotels and try and change my life so I could work less hours. So it was like corporate cooking. And actually, what happened was when I came out, it did give me time to start realizing a lot that there was actually something really wrong going on inside, and from there, I started realizing, but I also started ignoring it. And can you imagine? I was working at the top levels, like 2 Michelin star level, and I came out of that from working 18 to 20 hours a day to working around 8 or 9. I was working in like Canary Wharf, the business district, right? And the first day I remember I came out, Pat, and I looked up at the sky. The first day it was 4:30 in the afternoon. Usually I'd be working till 1 in the morning, right? And it was at that point I realized I didn't have any friends because I'd gave my life to this industry. Most of them were still in the kitchens, and there was something that I had to fill up. My body said, this isn't right, you've got time. And it should have been the time to get healthy. But what I did is actually fill that gap and started going out, finding people, getting more unhealthy, taking drugs again, and filling it up because there was no one to look after me, no one to guide us in the industry, right? No one to tell us this, because once you're out the door, you're forgotten about, right? It's changed a lot now, don't get me wrong, but we're talking about quite a while ago, right? And then from there, I started going through phases of looking after myself and getting well. Coming out of those depressive times, I'd start finding things like I'd start doing martial arts. And for 2 years, I'd feel great, really thriving and just feeling like almost full. I always felt like even when I was well, there was part of me missing. Okay, there was something missing that wasn't that I felt like was there when I was younger, but it wasn't there. There's still something missing even though I was really well. And then even though I was doing all the things, keeping fit, eating healthy, after a couple of years, I'd go downhill again and I wouldn't understand it because I thought I'd nailed it. I thought I'd found the answer with things like fitness and eating healthy and having healthy people around me. And it was at that point then I started realizing that it was really more a case of mental health, depression, and going a bit deeper. So again, followed on up and down. I ended up going through some really great patches and getting promoted in my job really, really quick. Like I said, there was lots of up and downs. Come to my most recent job was around 3 years ago, and that was looking after like multiple, we're talking 30, 40 odd kitchens in London. I was a group executive chef. Development, looking after chefs, they're training them. And that's when I started Jasper Wellbeing, which started as a resilience company, which was helping people in the hospitality industry. Because I wanted to help people that were, in the same position as me. Because it was at that point I started understanding what had been going on with me for the past 10 years. Do you know what I mean? So I was doing that while I was working full time. I finally got diagnosed with depressive disorder, anxiety. Chronic stress, all that sort of stuff. The typical, even though I was working half the hours, the typical kind of chef burnout. It was a lot of burnout times. Anyway, that's when I had another dip, right? I had another dip, and it was, I lose count of time because of COVID now, but I had another dip before all COVID happened. I think it was the end of the year before the March or April, whenever COVID happened. And I came across, I was at a point where I was like, I don't want to go to work. And I was in that type of mind space again. And then I came across mindfulness, meditation, teacher training. And my extreme mindset as a chef that I'd been taught to, it's all or nothing. And at the time, I didn't realize it was the start of a new life for me. And I just went, do you know what? I've done this, I've done that, I've done the kind of the fitness, the healthy eating, and I kept going up and down like a roller coaster. And then I thought, I'm going to sign up to be a mindfulness meditation teacher, which is totally extreme considering I'd tried meditation a couple of times, right? But that was the chef in me, extremeness in all aspects. And it completely transformed my life very quick. And it was a very short time till I felt like that piece that was missing. I was me again. I felt like for the first time, I couldn't even remember last time I felt whole. And this just gives me goosebumps even thinking about it, because it's like, it changed everything. And then suddenly I changed the whole concept of my business to my journey, because I knew there was people like me out there. So I started training again. I trained with Bodhi Yoga in Thailand and Mindfulness Now in Oxford, UK, and did all sorts of kind of wonderful courses, met some wonderful tribes, yoga body in Barcelona as well. And they've all been pivotal in this journey of mine. And a few years later, now I'm teaching. This is the thing that really gives me goosebumps when I say it. People want to know how I live and ask me how I live, and they want me to, they pay for them services. Now, to me, can you imagine where I'm coming from? Imagine 5-10 years ago, it's not going to happen. So can you teach me how you live? Like how you live like that, how you have this motivation, this positivity, and this just this whole calmness and aura about you. It feels kind of crazy that it's like that, right? And that's it. And that's where we are today, Jasper Wellbeing. And yeah, it's now my career. It's also my life. I live and breathe what I do day in, day out. And it really is, sometimes it feels quite overwhelming in terms of just the peace and joy it brings me. Because sometimes I think to myself, wow, is this real? I have to pinch myself sometimes. But life has unexpected turns, right? And
Oh, very much so. It's such a process. And I think finding health on all these multiple levels, and they're all essential, is a process.
All
It does not
essential.
turn on a dime.
Absolutely. Even though, like I said, whenever I was doing these, like going deep into fitness and it was helping and the healthy eating, if I didn't do them, I wouldn't be where I am now, and I wouldn't have gone. They were all part of this process that helped me learn and help me grow. Finding out that fitness wasn't my savior wasn't a bad thing. Going back down and my mental health depleting, it was just part of that journey to move on to the next thing. And all of these times, it just gave me wisdom that I can share to people that are in that same or similar positions that I was.
I think finding a purpose in life is really important. And a lot of us think our jobs provide that, and they do for a while, perhaps, but it's very monodimensional. How do you look at that path that you've taken from a job that demands perfection? I mean, Michelin two-star restaurants demand absolute perfection and are so stressful. How do you move from that to, how do you let go of it? How do you let go of it all? And what replaces it?
This is the problem many people in that space have, is letting go of it, is coming away from it. And actually, if you ask 99% of people in that space, they would probably say to you, there's nothing else I can do. I've only done this. And they don't realize the wonderful transferable tools that they've learned through this really hard industry, because it also rips away some of your belief because you're unhealthy, right? Rips away some of your mindset and your belief in yourself, so you think you're imprisoned in the industry. And I know it sounds like I'm making it out to be a bad place. I don't want it to sound like that, because like I said at the start, it's a wonderful industry that has not got great infrastructure when it comes to well-being. That's what it is. But it is full of wonderful, creative, passionate people that just need a more stable well-being kind of infrastructure there for to help them thrive and to deal with tough times and long hours and stuff like that, you know. So yeah, I just wanted to add that because it's an industry that I do love, and I work in the industry now, funnily enough, with well-being. It's kind of that whole that whole circle. It's wonderful. Actually, a company that I'm working with now was one of the first corporate companies I worked with when I first came to London, which I'm thinking was about 13 or 14 years ago. And I'm working with them now, and that was one of the first places where I was really deeply, deeply struggling, you know, for the first kind of around about the first time, so it's interesting how that works, right? It's come all the way back round, and they haven't got me in because I used to work for them, because I don't think they actually realize. So yeah.
Well, it's not just hospitality, it's a lot of industries. Finance is like that. And I think that in this materialistic world we've created, we are all pushing ourselves into a box to be perfect, to attain, to achieve. And that may be very contrary to the world if it's a nonlinear world, which I am beginning to think it is. One of the things you mentioned on your website that I'd love to get into a little bit, you talk about John Kabat-Zinn and his influence, and that he describes several attitudinal qualities that underpin a mindfulness practice. I'd love to talk a little bit about beginner's
One
mind.
of
Yeah.
It's actually one of my books on my desk. Full Catastrophe Living. John Kabat-Zinn
Yeah.
he really is the modern day, I'd say, king of mindfulness when it comes to uniting East and West. Beginner's mind. Beginner's mind is so powerful, right? It's so powerful in that we are always led through life, or we lead ourselves through life with misconception and preconception. Lots of misconception due to our belief systems, which we've picked up as kids from parents, grandparents, politicians, people of authority that we trust, that have good, that with the things that they teach us has love, always has love behind it, right? It's got good meaning. They want to teach us, but times change and it doesn't necessarily align with who we are. So we go through life with believing our beliefs, and our beliefs aren't always true, and we believe what it is to be absolutely the truth and only the truth, until we start practicing and becoming more conscious and aware that that's actually not true. We don't have to believe our thoughts, because our thoughts aren't always the truth, right? So where beginner's mind really really comes in and was pivotal in my transformation is that we go into every situation as if it's the absolute first time, because as an expert, what can you really learn? Absolutely nothing. If you've in your mind you're an expert, there's nothing else for you to learn, so you often miss learning opportunities from people that might actually be lower ranked than you in your workplace or whatever it is. So if you can learn to see every moment as if it was the first time, what you do is you knock down barriers, you knock down subconscious walls that stop you from absorbing new things, new elements, new experiences. And
Well, and you still have the criticism within you too, because you're approaching it as a blank slate. I think beginner's mind is one of the most profound concepts I've ever run into.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And it's one of them things which certainly should be a big part of, I think, primary schools. I don't know what you call them in the US, but primary schools. Is it primary school before high school?
Primary,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And it should be taught there because beginner's mind is so powerful. It's so, so powerful. Beginner's mind for me is like, I was towards the end of my career in hospitality. I was using beginner's mind a lot, and actually I didn't know, and I've realised I was. As I'd become kind of more mature in a space where I had to look after a lot of people. And what I realized is I went into situations where I was really open to, even though I was the kind of the second highest ranked person in the company out of hundreds of chefs, I was really open to apprentices and people coming in new. And I was always taught to as a chef coming up that whatever I say doesn't mean anything. You're at the bottom of the pile. And I gave apprentices and everything opportunities to give ideas and to try and help them be creative and kind of open up to new ideas. And I used to say many times and when you can do that as a leader and you can actually say to them, look, I want your ideas, and not act like an expert, but act as an equal, and then give your wisdom that you've built up from the years. It's a wonderful thing because people started thriving. These apprentices started thriving and moving up quickly because they felt empowered by that element of that I was showing, which was essentially beginner's mind. Because when they'd have a great idea, I'd say to them, I'm going to steal it and I'm going to take it and we're going to put that across the company. Imagine how empowering that is for an apprentice. But what I'm trying to say is that's how powerful beginner's mind is, because I could have walked around with my ego that I used to have and not learn anything because I was the food development chef and I was this and I was that, but I never, and that was empowering for a lot of people, and that actually earned me a lot of love and a lot of respect in that space. So beginner's mind is literally one of the most powerful things we can adapt in our lives as individuals and as teams within companies.
I think it's where creativity lives.
Yeah, it allows people to shine. Even you as a person, if you can adopt beginner's mind, like within you and in every element, everything becomes a wonderful adventure, right? It's like mindful eating. On my starter courses, I do mindful eating, and I ask them to approach eating a raisin like they've never seen one before. It's like come from a different planet, and suddenly people start realizing that in this brown raisin there's flickers of gold and little bits of purple, and they've never realized these colors and these textures. And then suddenly, as they're eating this raisin, they realize the different bursts of flavor from their lip to their tongue, and without adapting going into that with a beginner's mind, you're just going to go, "Well, eat, doesn't matter, it's gone. It's just a raisin. It's just a raisin," right? So beginner's mind with everything turns everything into a wonderful adventure. That's how I see it. All right.
I think so too, and it's just an amazing shift in perspective. You know, one of the other things that John Kabat-Zinn talks about that I also think is really important, I know it's been pivotal in my life, is gratitude.
Very powerful, very powerful, very difficult at first for me. Gratitude. It was one of the first things when I looked that you taught, right? When you're looking into mindfulness, and especially when you're doing a teacher's training. I'm sure I was the only person ever going into teacher's training that hadn't been meditating for the past 5 or 10 years. And it was difficult for me because I was going into it not necessarily to, I guess, to be a teacher, but not necessarily to be a teacher as something that as a savior to me. So it was a difficult mind space to go into, right? Because gratitude, like what have I got to feel gratitude for? I feel like whatever, like low, and like I'm not feeling very motivated, and I've kind of just gone all into this. Do you know what I mean? So to practice that for me at the start was quite difficult, but very quickly, as I started adapting that beginner's mind, because that genuinely is one of the first beginner's mind. I want you to say you need to come into this with a beginner's mind and be open and non-judgmental and stuff. And as soon as I started doing that, gratitude did start, and I understood those concepts. Gratitude suddenly becomes, wow, it becomes this very, very powerful concept. And you at the start, you never really think, oh, I'm going to practice gratitude. I'm going to keep a gratitude journal. Well, what's this going to do? You're just writing. But them words of gratitude, they have such a profound shift within the cells of your body, within your nervous system. Our words are so powerful, right? Gratitude makes you smile. And just by raising a smile physically, it changes how your body feels completely.
And it changes your thought process and how you approach things.
Absolutely. You stop. As humans, we tend to we take all of the things in life that literally keep us alive for granted, right? Our breath, our bodies, nature, the trees, the plants, all of these things, water streams, we see them as they're just there. They're on Earth. We don't see we never, when you can start feeling gratitude for them things and realize that all these things that we take for granted are what keep us alive, rather than the Maserati or the Armani suit and all of this stuff that we'd usually feel gratitude for in our kind of outside world. That's when it becomes really powerful, when you start connecting to those things that you took for granted and realize this is what keeps me alive. And I'm going to feel the utmost love and gratitude towards the most simple things that are around us, and they're the most powerful and the most nourishing and the most profound. They create the biggest shifts and the biggest change. Gratitude, beginner's mind, just such powerful things, giving me every time I say things like this and get in these wonderful conversations, it's like the goosebumps that I always get because of the place where I was and the place that I am, and to be able to just think about that and notice I'm getting goosebumps. I've got gratitude for that. That's my body shifting when I'm thinking about it, when I'm in a really passionate conversation with someone, right? It's just powerful, beautiful.
Want to hear more of the conversation? Sign up at bumpintheroad.us as a Bump 2 subscriber. Buy us a cup of coffee. You can give it a go for free. Just use the code FREEMONTH. And thank you for listening today. I hope you found something in today's podcast that inspires you along your own life's path, because sometimes a bump in the road is actually a portal into a more conscious and meaningful life.